It's another busy week. I'm on the road, which means I didn't book a guest, and so I'm turning the show over to you. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid, and you're watching The Gunn Show. Well, as many of you may know, not the entire Rebel News team, because I'm not there, but almost all of the Rebel News on-air team is away on the Rebel News cruise in Alaska. Now, I was supposed to be there. I had an appointment that I couldn't change, and if I did, it would be another 6 months before I could get it again, and I just thought I better deal with my appointment. So we swapped me out for Amy Ham, who is a journalist and a nurse, and she has been outspoken in her criticism of gender theory, and she has been just absolutely attacked, not only online by the radical left, but also by her own professional organization in British Columbia. So she's off enjoying herself because there's a woman who could use a cruise. And I've been covering for Ezra, and, there's a lot of moving pieces here at Rebel News. Besides all the things that you see me do on air, I have other jobs at the company, but also Ezra's gone. So if you are watching Ezra's show, you're getting a lot of Sheila these days over there too. And it's not that Ezra doesn't want to help. It is because reception on the high seas, not all that great. So a couple weeks ago, I was really busy. And I put out a call to your emails, loyal viewers, and said, hey, I don't have time to book a guest. Can you send me some letters, some questions to Sheila? And boy, did you ever. And so I've been relying on those to get me through these busy weeks. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. I would very much like to be out of my office on Wednesday. Not that I won't be working, but I won't be here with my camera. And so I'm pre-recording this Monday night in my studio before I do my second live stream of the day. We're also covering the 3 Alberta by-elections. One, NDP leader Naheed Nenshi is trying to win a seat finally in the House. And then the other one is Rachel Notley's old seat in Edmonton, Strathcona. That's that's a write-off. It's going to go to the NDP. And then in Olds Didsbury. Now, the UCP is running up against the Alberta Republicans, who are running a separatist candidate, Cam Davies, that's their leader, in the riding formerly held by Speaker in the legislature, Nathan Cooper, who resigned. Now, that riding elected a separatist in the past, so sort of would be the safest seat for a separatist to run in. I'm not sure if people are willing to risk having the NDP run up the middle in Olds Didsbury and vote with their hearts for the Separatist Party, or does it, when you see this, we'll know. But I don't know right now. I'm giving it a lot of thought, and I am about 30 minutes out of a live stream. So I have to get to the point here. My point is, I don't have time to book a guest. I would like to be out of the office on Wednesday, again, working, but not at my desk in front of my camera. So I'm going back into the mailbag. And if you are somebody who remembers when I sent you an email a little while ago asking for your letters, your questions to Sheila, you can still send me questions because it's obvious. Busy summer, everybody's doing stuff. I will be reaching into the mailbag as the summer goes on so that I am not chained to this desk for hours and hours and hours as the summer slips through my fingers. So we're going back into the mailbag, and we'll just hammer off some of these, and then I'll wrap it up because, like I said, I'm filming this Monday night. I have about 25 minutes before I have to jump on to the next thing that I have to do, which is like a 2-hour live stream on the election results. So you're the guest tonight. Thank you so much, Rebel News viewers, for helping me out when I'm really busy and crushed with work. I can always rely on you. Without you, there's no Rebel News. It's never more evident than it is for me today. So let's get into it. I'll zip it. I'll stop with my yakety yak and get into the computer screen here. All right. Here's one. So this one comes to us by way of Ian. What channels are used by politicians to send the message down through the police and bureaucratic ranks to trample on people's rights and freedoms? Many police have left the force because they see unethical freedoms, rights abuses, constitutional violations, police trampling on free speech, enforcing feelings, etc. And boy, do we see this a lot around Western countries now, as David Menzies experiences. It is unspoken, kept quiet, but really important. We see only the end result, not the orders from above. Has anyone tried to pry this open? John Carpe wrote about this in Corrupted by Fear. Are police taught this now in their academies? Do police chiefs get secret orders from politicians or bureaucrats, which are then quietly transmitted down the ranks? Individuals not complying because it conflicts with their ethical beliefs are expunged from the force. Tom Quiggin and many in Canada and the US, Helen Grews. Judges and prosecutors cooperate with the oppression, no shame. Seems a central question is who and how pulls the strings in all of this. Is it legal? In tyrannies, China, Russia, North Korea, the answer is obvious. Is it possible to interview a lot of people who have been left or forced out to get a picture of how this works from the very top to the tyrant on the streets or behind the desk, get info on how what is taught in police academies? I don't think this stuff is taught in police academies. And regular viewers of the show will know that I have police in my family. And many cops, I think by and large, even most cops, join the police force because they care about arresting the bad guys. They care about constitutional freedoms. That's why they join the police force, to make sure that dirtbags aren't trampling on yours. The problem is that at the same time, control freaks and operatives also get involved in the police force to scratch their control freak itch, right? And it makes it really difficult for the good cops to do their jobs. And God bless the good cops who do, because they are grinding it out in the machine. And they're working really hard. And the worst part is the bad cops trade on the good cops' reputation, right? You see the Mountie, and you know that's a symbol of sort of Canadian patriotism, but the control freaks and weirdos know that, right? So they sort of hide behind that reputation that good cops, like those in my family, have earned. And it's sort of the same way psychopaths get into politics and business. And that's not just me saying that, like, whoa, that guy's a psycho. No, there have been studies that have proven that people with psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies get involved in those places where they can exhibit control. And they actually zoom up the ranks because they don't have the moral qualms that the rest of us do. When we're asked to do something that violates our conscience, they don't have one. So they don't have a problem with it. And so I think we have to remember that. Now, how is this stuff transmitted down the ranks? Well, I think it's sort of systemic through the pipeline. The bad guys advance because they don't have a problem doing bad things. And then they sort of get at the top. And it's like a pyramid or an upside down funnel. And I think that's just the nature of the beast. Now, people who do bad things are also very crafty. They will not do it in writing, where some intrepid journalists like me can find it through access to information, right? They'll say stuff like, and I've seen this in access filings, emails or text messages to each other to say, hey, let's take this conversation offline. So they might have it in a phone call instead of a text message where there's no record of it. Although I think we all saw an inner working of the minds of the brain trust, and I struggle to call it that because I don't know if there's a lot of brains involved there, of the Trudeau cabinet when their text messages were revealed during the Public Order Emergency Commission hearings, where we saw them talking about sending in tanks, the army, on peaceful Canadian citizens during the honkening in downtown Ottawa. Now, couple that with the two-tiered policing we see every day now on the streets of Ottawa. One only needs to look at Chris Dacey, his X account, to see how the police treat him when he's just trying to document the protests of the Hamas radicals and terrorist adjacent rallies that are on the streets there constantly. They say that he's provoking them, that he needs to get out of there, that he's the problem, but the like IRGC fanboys, they're perfectly fine. So I guess to answer your question, if documents do exist, these people are crafty and cagey, and how it happens, I think it is just sometimes a cultural thing within the institution. And the good people don't play along, but the bad people know what it takes to get to the top, and they'll do anything to do it. And then it becomes institutionalized. And support your good cops, because they are surrounded sometimes by the worst people on the face of the earth. All right. George Flanagan says, I spent over 2 years in the Cold War, 57 to 59, 2 winters, keeping Khrushchev out of Canada. Now we have communism. I'll take your word for it. There are a lot of people who spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe, including Eastern European immigrants to Canada, who say, this feels communisty to me. The attacks on the church, the attacks on your free speech, they just do it digitally now. Instead of taking your book out of your hand and burning it, they make sure that you can never find the book in the search engine, right? So yeah, I believe you. Pammican Man says, hello, Sheila. Love you and the whole Rebel crew and Rebel News. On the subject of Alberta separation, why not make it a super West by making Saskatchewan, BC, and Manitoba one big independent? Look, I think the way it's structural right now, because we have laws that are different in each province governing citizen-led referendum, or referenda, as the plural would be, we need to take this one province at a time. And I think if Alberta leaves, Saskatchewan will not stay. They're going to look and say, it is possible. Look at them. They're doing it. And then they're going to turn around, look at everything to the east of them and say, we're not swimming with this millstone around our neck. Thank you very much. And then you're going to see, I think, and this is purely speculative. I mean, this is a question for 2026. But in my fantasy football world, Alberta goes, then Saskatchewan looks around and says, you're not leaving me in the asylum by myself. Thank you. We're out. Then you're going to see, I think, BC fracture into probably 2 different places, because the interior and the north are going to look at Alberta, and the interior votes as blue as anywhere in Alberta. They're going to look and say, you're going to leave us here? You're going to leave us here? And I think they will be seriously considering splitting away from the lower mainland and the island, and going their own way, or maybe joining Alberta. And then I think likewise something similar might happen in Manitoba, because Manitoba is actually quite NDP-ish. And I think there will be like parts of Manitoba that touch on Saskatchewan that will say, take us with you. Do not leave us here with these lunatics. So I'm not against a super West. I just don't think a super West would encompass the entirety of the 4 provinces. Brian writes, why has Rebel never exposed former and failed Liberal Party leader Michael Ignatieff ties to George Soros and his Open Society Foundation? He's currently a member of their senior board. I'm sure if you guys did some digging, you'll find out how compromised the Liberal Party has been and since when. There's also a former Ontario politician on a smaller board with Open Society Foundation. His name escapes me at the moment. Thanks for all the work you guys do. You're on the front line. Keep it going. God bless the entire organization. Well, thank you so much. I'll tell you why we haven't even talked about Michael Ignatieff, except to point out the very effective Conservative Party campaign ads at the time. Remember this? Michael Ignatieff, he didn't come back for you. Because he didn't. He literally came back to run the campaign, lose, and then go back to wherever the heck he came from. He's by and large an American. Somehow Mark Carney didn't get touched with the stink of he didn't come back for you, but he definitely didn't come back for us. He came to lord over us. But the reason is Michael Ignatieff is really, at this point, just an American academic who plays no real role in Canadian politics. And there's so many lunatics who are currently involved in Canadian politics in the Liberal Party that suck up all the oxygen because their brains need all the oxygen they can handle. But it's just because he's not all that relevant right now. And I actually think that's a great thing. All right. Brittany says, hi, Sheila. Love you and Rebel News in general. We are paying members since the Freedom Convoys. Thank you so much. And we believe you play an important role in the info war. How do Canadians feel about Charles the Weak giving Canada to the so-called native population? I'm in the U.S., so I'm curious what y'all are thinking. Okay. I straddle a few worlds on this, and I'll tell you why. So I like the tradition of the monarchy. I value the current king as the son of a beloved Queen Elizabeth II. I mean, just her service to the nation and above politics. There's something the royal family did, and some of them do really well. They are working royals. They have to be in constant service to the people. There's a reason why the Queen always dressed like a crayon. You never saw her in a dark color, and her umbrellas were always clear. And she said, my people are waiting for hours to see me. And so I mustn't be obscured by an umbrella. And they have to be able to spot me in a sea of people. So she always dressed in the brightest Crayola crayons of colors. And I really like that about her. She did what she could during World War II. She was a Jeep mechanic during World War II. And one of the things that the royal family always said was, never complain, never explain. As in, don't explain yourself. Don't get involved in politics. Once you're explaining, you're sort of admitting that you've done something wrong or that you are involved in it. And they are supposed to be the steady hand that even when the government changes, when political parties change, they are the constant. They never change and never complain. You were born into royalty. If you have to shake 1,000 hands and wave till your wrist feels like it's broken, do it. Because you are essential for the confidence of the people in the continuity of the state. And I know that Mark Carney has said that Canadians are the most European of the non-European peoples. And I know that some parts of our culture do feel kind of European, like our structure of our government is very European, very Commonwealth, right? It's replicated after the British system of a constitutional monarchy. And Charles is our ceremonial head of state. His representative here is our Governor General, Mary Simon, who is a crazy person. She's just a woke, spendy, crazy person appointed by Justin Trudeau. And I don't like Charles's politics because I know his politics. And I never want to know the politics of the monarchy. I know that he's in the Green cult. And he did that land acknowledgement at the House of Commons when Carney called in a favor and said, we need to really be Canadian elbows up, stick it to the Americans. Will you come and do our speech from the throne, which is scripted by the government, so the Liberal Party, for the head of state to read. So it will feel partisan because it lays out the government's plans for the next sitting of the House of Commons. A respectful Liberal government would not have made that speech so partisan. They would have said, geez, guys, we've got the king here. We need to really take down the politics and just be rah, rah, go Canada. But it was a very politically charged speech. And I blame the Liberals for that, because the speech from the throne is always read by the monarch or the representative of the monarch. And so I thought that was kind of scummy what the Liberals did. And yeah, the land acknowledgement was weird because, like, you're the chief colonizer. The crown is like the chief colonizer. So it was just a weird thing for him to have done. I mean, the United States wouldn't exist. Canada wouldn't exist if the British crown didn't plunk some colonies here. Now, we had two very different paths to independence from the crown, yours through revolution and ours through legislation. But I wouldn't downplay the good of colonization, particularly here in North America. And that's all I have to say about that. Oh, yes. And also, it is my hope one day for William and Princess Catherine to take over the crown. And I mean, he's the next in line to the throne, and hopefully everything will go back to being good again. And we won't have this like shakiness with the crown, because from what I understand, all sources say the Queen very much liked Princess Catherine. She followed all the rules. She works really hard. She's raising her kids. There are certain rules of comportment and dress expected of the future queen. She follows all of them. She takes her charitable work very seriously. By all accounts, just a warm, nice person. I don't know anything about her politics. I like it that way. And likewise with William. William, I think he flew search and rescue. Very much a working royal. And so here's my hope that in the meantime, Charles and Camilla don't destroy the institution. Let's just all hope that. And, you know, I'm sure people are wondering, like, Sheila, why do you like the monarchy? If you feel less than culturally compatible with your fellow Canadians to the east of you. You know, I think Westerners feel sort of more American. Like we feel, not that we feel American, but we feel more culturally aligned with our Americans. For example, I feel more culturally compatible with our Montana friends than I would, let's say, from Vancouverites. Okay? We care about freedom, free speech, firearms rights, agriculture, oil and gas. And in Vancouver, they want to ban fireplaces to save the climate. Okay? So, and give out free drugs. So yes, I feel more culturally compatible with our American friends. However, if I am not conserving our culture and history, am I a conservative at all? No, I can say that I want our future to be different, but if we're not actually actively conserving the institutions and our culture, then what is it that I would call myself a conservative for? Then I would just be a regular old libertarian, and I am not that. All right. Ross McFadden says we have a big promotion going to buy Canadian products, so now we need to have a big promotion to hire Canadians. Yeah, we're going to have to take that up with the Carney Liberals because immigration is out of control. Did you know that Canada takes in the fourth highest number of refugees? Out of all the countries, we have one of the smallest populations on the face of the earth. These people are landing in Toronto, most of them. Toronto is growing an entire large Alberta city every year, just based on the number of people who are being resettled there. That's unsustainable. And then on top of that, we're bringing in temporary foreign workers. For what? Toronto is approaching 10% unemployment. Yeah, no kidding. Housing out of control. We need to pump the brakes on immigration. I'm not saying they have to go home, but they can't stay here. And I am not by any means against immigration, but this is unsustainable for people who are already here. And I mean, old stock Canadians, to use a term that once got a politician in trouble, but just immigrants that have already been here, who came here, who chose us, did it the right way, and now they can't afford to live here either. Like, this is unsustainable for anybody. Tony Very says, hi, Sheila. First off, thank you to everyone at Rebel News. What's your take on the latest insanity of wanting to lower the voting age? Is there anything the ordinary person can do to push back against the probability of more censorship? Thanks and have a great day. Okay, first on the voting age nonsense. This is a perennial crazy thing that the left always brings in. Why? Because they want kids to vote for them before they're smart enough to know better. And they think then we'll just create habitual NDP, Liberal voters, whatever. And we know that kids cannot serve in the military. They can't even drive till they're 16. They can't consent to medical procedures unless it's gender-affirming care. They can't get a tattoo. They can't get their ears pierced. Can't own a firearm. So, well, that's not true. They can own a firearm. But there are things that kids can't do because we recognize that their brains aren't fully formed. They can't enter into a contract. They can't rent anything. But they're going to decide the fate of the country. That's crazy. But the thing is, kids would be, like so many on the left, low liability voters, meaning they don't really pay anything into the system. They're living at home, whatever. And so they could vote for, candies and lollipops, free iPhones, whatever, because they don't have to put the money down to pay for the consequences. Mommy and daddy do. And so they're really low liability on the scale of people who are involved in the system. And that's crazy because their low liability vote would have the same weight as yours. So that's why the left does it. They don't be too worried about it. They float it every 4 years. They sort of float this idea of like, we lost the election, let's lower the voting age. So it'll just go away, hopefully. Now, on the second part, the ways to fight back against the censorship. It's hard. I guess the best way is to support the people who do fight back against the censorship. Support your independent journalists. And I don't just mean us here at Rebel News, True North, Juno, Countersignal, Western Standard, even the smaller guys, Chris Dacey. There are people out there who are doing their best to get around the censorship. Share our work. If you can find our work on the internet, which will become more and more difficult, share our work, please. Directly with your friends. Text them a link to our work. Really, it has to be like that, just guerrilla activism. It's strange times we live in, but I promise you we're going to do everything we can to fight back against the incoming censorship of Mark Carney. He said he's going to bring back much of Justin Trudeau's censorship legislation that died when Justin Trudeau prorogued Parliament to reward the Liberals with one more term for their corruption. Well, everybody, I think I have to wrap it up. I'm 3 minutes away from the next thing that I have to do. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for bearing with me as I turn the show over to you 2 weeks in a row. Sorry about that. I'll do my best to be better with my time. Thanks to everybody who works behind the scenes at Rebel News to put the show together for you so you can watch it and listen to it whenever you want to. And as I always say, don't let the government tell you that you've had too much to think.